Good morning and welcome to CAD-1's session, Advanced Features, Corridors, Assemblies, and the Use of Targets in Civil 3D. My name's Stan Henney. I'm the Business Development Manager here at CAD-1, and I'm proud to have Mr. Brian J. Haley, PE, and our Technical Specialist here at CAD-1. Who will be doing the presentation today. As usual, we have a few housekeeping slides to go through, so bear with us. Here's this slide. Most of you have been on a GoToMeeting, so you understand all this. You can minimize your console by hitting the orange and white arrow. Hopefully you can hear us. If you can hear us, hit the raise your hand button so that we can see that we're coming through loud and clear, or loud and something. Loudon Wainwright. The next thing, and most important thing, if you do have questions, please type them in the question box and we will get them answered as quickly as we can. Please keep in mind that this webinar is about this particular topic, so try and keep those questions around that. We'll have civil chat pretty soon and we'll answer more broad-based questions. Anyway, Brian, you want to move to the next slide there and we'll go on there now. It's the Autodesk time of year where there's lots of promotions going on, and it is important that by January 31st you move any of your older software to the latest version. After January 31st, 2015, you will not be able to upgrade your software anymore, and you will need to be on the current version in order to receive updates and so forth. So call us if you have any questions about that, and we can help you through the channels there. We offer a lot of programs for students, and so if you're a student at one of the Colorado or Wyoming colleges, or frankly anywhere, we can offer some discounted training programs for you so that you're learning the tools that you will face in industry when you head out into the real world. And last, we have a few classes coming up. I'll run through those real quick. On September 22nd through the 25th, we have a Civil 3D Fundamentals class coming up. Civil 3D Styles on the 29th. It's a one-day class, obviously. On the 30th, we have Grading in Civil 3D. Pipe Networks on October 1st. That's been a real popular class, so you might want to look into that. Civil 3D Hydrology and Hydraulics on October 2nd. InfoWorks is catching on big time, and if you want to be one of the first kids on your block to learn that, great new program from Autodesk. October 13th and 14th are the days to sign up for that class. We also have the Civil 3D Survey Field to Finish on the 16th and 17th of October, and then we repeat the cycle all over again in late October with the Civil 3D Fundamentals. We also have, and we want to let you know about, on October the 17th, our own Brian J. Haley, PE, and Rick Ellis, noted Civil 3D speaker, will be conducting a seminar here at CAD-1. It's going to be a really action-packed, information-packed seminar. Good program, and the cost on that is $199, and you can go to the CAD-1 website and find the registration information, but that will be a good presentation. It will include lunch and breakfast and a chair and so forth. So
maybe we'll throw in a notepad.
Yeah. So anyway, look forward to that. And Brian, I think that's all the housekeeping we got, so let's turn it over to you for fun stuff.
All right, thanks, Dan. So in this episode of the CAD-1 webinars, we're going to be talking about corridors, some advanced functionality within corridors. So we're talking corridors. Now, when I talk with people and we start talking about corridors, a lot of people think corridors deal strictly with roads. They're not. A corridor can be used for anything that has a horizontal alignment, a vertical profile, and a typical cross-section. They don't have to be roads. Here's an example. I worked with S2O Design. They're an engineering firm out of Boulder, Colorado, who designs kayak courses. and they use corridors to model their kayak courses. So this is an example of some things that you can do that aren't roads. So,
well, if you're in a kayak, it's a road.
Yeah. If you're into kayaking, that sort of thing. I'm always happy to, this was actually the kayak course for the 2012 Olympics in London. So I helped those guys just a little bit with their corridor modeling. So I feel like I had just a smidge of input into the Olympics. So that's as close as I've gotten to the actual Olympics. So what we're going to be talking about today is some of the advanced options within corridors. I'm going to kind of focus mainly on the assemblies and targets. So here we've got an assembly, and a lot of people don't know that you can do this, but you can actually take an output parameter from one subassembly and use it for the input parameter of another subassembly, and I'll show you how to go about doing that. We also have conditional options. Most people are aware of the conditional cut and fill. If I'm within this much cut or this much fill, do this. Right? We also have horizontal targets. Say, for example, I want to put a driveway here, but I don't want a driveway there. Just draw a line where you want your driveways, and you can have it automatically put in your driveways for you. If you need to move the driveway, just move the line and your driveway moves. A lot of people have to design the things that aren't part of the assembly, the way the subassembly is created. A great example, in the city of Fort Collins, we have to do 3-line profiles. So you have to profile the center line as well as the flow line of both the left and the right flow line. The subassemblies only have attachment points at the back of curb or at the edge of asphalt or the lip of the curb. Well, I want it at the flow line of the curb. So what are some options that we can have to go about moving the attachment point of the assemblies, the subassemblies rather? And then we also have something called a marked point. Marked points are great, especially for when it comes to labeling. I need to label that one thing in that subassembly, but that subassembly doesn't have the appropriate thing for me to label. So we can go through and we can add marked points to any place in our assembly and use those to create feature lines, to put in labels, all sorts of fun things. Now, but before we get into this, I've got some polls here. So let's see. Let's start off with this one. I always like to ask this poll just to get an idea of who my users are. So what version of Civil 3D are you using? Are you up on the current version of 2015? Are you waiting for something before you jump to 2015? Maybe you're stuck back in an older version. I know sometimes it sucks, but it happens. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this. And let's see what the results are. It looks like most people are using 2014, which kind of surprises me. I figured more people would be making the change to 2015 by now. But that's all right. All right. Is your software on subscription? Remember, Stan was mentioning this earlier. If your software isn't on subscription by the end of January of next year, you will not be able to upgrade it. So this is a huge business decision you guys need to make. If it's not on subscription, you really need to consider whether or not you want to keep it off subscription or not.
Please do this.
Yeah, I know we're going to get them, but I really don't want to get those calls that say, what do you mean I can't upgrade? Nobody told me I can't
Right.
upgrade it now. Well, we're telling everybody that we possibly can. It looks like most people have their stuff on subscription. A few don't, so again, you might want to consider that. Obviously, we can't force you to put your software on subscription. It's just a business decision that you need to make.
Right.
All right. Specifically to corridors, how often do you use corridors? Do you use them every single day? Probably about once a week. Maybe not quite that often monthly. Or, we really don't use them very much at all.
And given the
All right, let me go ahead and close this.
Given the title, this is a little bit surprising, so maybe we can talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some more people to use them. So most people, it looks like they're not using it very often, but maybe you're planning on using them more, and that's why you're here. So hope you learned something. And finally, my last poll. Is Schrodinger's cat alive or dead?
I can't believe you did that. And you can't pick both.
Oh, this is very interesting. It's very, very close.
Which has its own irony to it.
Yes, yes. So is Schrodinger's cat alive or dead? And it looks like everybody is right. Well done. All right.
All right. So after a little fun there,
how about we just get to it? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring up Civil 3D here. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is adjusting the attachment point of the assemblies. Now this is really, really simple. So let me just create a new drawing here. This is just a blank drawing. There's nothing in this drawing. I'm going to create an assembly. And this particular assembly needs to follow along the flow line of my roadway design. All right, I need to attach the curb and gutter to this, and it needs to attach at the flow line. So I'm going to go bring up my tool palettes. All right, my other data set's metrics, so let me bring up my imperial ones. And I'm going to insert just this urban curb gutter general. Now, before I do this, I'm going to go into the help. If you haven't gone to the help for your subassemblies, they've done an outstanding job with the help files for subassemblies. So here's the help for the subassemblies. And you can see we've got a flange point here. And if we take a look at some of the input parameters, I have one that is the, where is it? Insertion point. All right. So basically, I've got two options. I can either do it at the gutter edge, or I can do it at the back of curb. If you notice, there is no option to do this at the flow line. So what do? Well, it depends. So I'm going to just go ahead and insert this. And right now, you can see I'm set as the gutter edge. So if I attach this, it attaches at the gutter edge. Now, I could change that. All right, so I'll go ahead and do that again. And this time, I'll do it at the back of curb. And again, you can see now it's attaching at the back of curb. So those are the two options that come default with the subassembly. Now, I don't want either of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert it. I'm going to use the default set to the gutter edge. And then what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take the subassembly and move it. So I use the move command, just the AutoCAD move, not the move subassembly command. All right, the move subassembly command will attach this to a different subassembly or to a different assembly. I don't want to do that. I just want to shift it within the assembly. So I'm just going to use the AutoCAD move command. I want to move it from my flow line to the insertion of the subassembly. And there it is. So you can add these offsets to your subassemblies. I had somebody ask one time, hey, I need to put a lane in here, but I need a 1-inch gap here. I need the actual asphalt to be 1 inch above the flow line. How do I do that? Well, attach the lane to the curb and gutter and move it up 1 inch. That's all you have to do. Now, the caveat here is everything has attachment points. So if I come in here and just say, you know what? For whatever reason, I need to change the width of the gutter. What we did is we said, hey, I want to attach this subassembly here, and then I want to add this offset to it. So basically I say, hey, I'm attaching here and I'm offsetting to there. So if I come in here and I change the properties of this, so, let's change the gutter width, which is my... All right, so that's dimension B, width from the flange point to the flow line of gutter. Say, hey, I want this to be a 2-foot gutter. So I put 24 inches in there. What you can see is we still have the same thing. I attached it here, and I put this offset. My flow line no longer matches up with my assembly. So those are some of those things you have to be aware of here. So it's real simple to do. You just got to be aware of the caveats. All right, so that's the first thing. Like I said, that one's pretty straightforward and simple. Let me go ahead and close this drawing. Let's go to the next one. Let's see. Let's do the assembly inputs. So what I have here is I have an assembly. Let's actually go take a look at the assembly. And it has two lanes on the right-hand side. So I've got an inside lane and I've got an outside lane. What I also have is I have a feature line in here that represents where I need the inside lane to go. So I need my inside lane to target this feature line both horizontally as well as vertically. That's what I have. So when I come in here and I do this, the slope of this lane is going to change. It's no longer going to have a 2% cross slope. It's going to have something else. All right, so let me come over here to the actual cross-section. This cross-section is represented by this sample line here. And I'll do just that. I'm going to go ahead and change the targets here. So I'll go edit my targets. All right, on the right-hand side, I have my inside lane and my outside lane. So I want my inside lane to target that feature line. So I'll choose my feature line, select it from the drawing, and I'll grab the feature line. Now, feature lines have to be named in order to be targets within a corridor. This particular feature line wasn't named, so I'm going to let Civil 3D name it for me. I'm also going to do the same thing for the elevation, so the cross slope for this lane. So that, again, this is the right inside lane. I'm going to grab that same feature line. Select OK. And as you can see, the width changed as well as the slope. Here's the problem. I didn't want to change the width of this outside lane, but I want the slope of this outside lane to match the slope of the inside lane. I want them to be the same. So the way we accomplish this is we go into the assembly properties. So here in my assembly properties, not the subassembly properties, the assembly properties, on the construction tab, I can go ahead and change these. So I want this outside lane to match the slope of the inside lane. So I come over here to my outside lane right, and what you'll notice is down below here, I have my output values. So this is what is being output from this particular subassembly. I want to use this output as an input for a different subassembly. So I'm going to go to my inside lane right, and you can see my lane slope is an output. So on my outside lane, I'm going to use that lane slope for the slope of the outside lane. So I come up here, I find my slope, so default slope. I want to use a parameter reference. What do I want to use? Well, I want to use the inside lane slope. All right, select OK. I'll go ahead and rebuild my corridor. And we'll go take a look at my cross-section again. And here you can see the slopes are now the same.
And we have a question from Sheldon. And Jeff, we see your question, and we will get to that. Sheldon asks, what if you need to target two different gutter lines to two different profiles?
I need to target two different gutter lines to two different profiles. That's a tough one. Yeah, you're getting into those three-line profiles again, and those get tricky. I should do a webinar just on three-line profiles perhaps someday. If I have time at the end of the webinar, I'll show you some techniques you can do to do exactly that. So I've got my center line, and I got my two profiles for my flow lines, and I need to use all three of those for my roadway design. How do I go about doing that? And I'll give you some tips and tricks for that as well. But right now, I'm going to keep going with the webinar. And like I said, Sheldon, if I have time at the end, I will definitely address that. And we'll probably have time, so don't worry about it too much. All right, so those are my assembly input and output parameters. All right. And again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. So I'm going to go now into my marked point. So here's what I've got. I'm not sure exactly why I want to do this. This is the example I came up with. For this particular project, the really important piece is right there, at the bottom outside edge of my curb and gutter. Unfortunately, there's no way for me to label it with this subassembly. So if I go to the help for the subassembly, so how do you find the help? Well, again, you go to your subassemblies. All right, let me switch back over to my metric ones, because this is now, I'm now in my metric data set. Go to my curbs, and I go to the help for this curb and gutter. And what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to label this particular point here. Now, if you've used code set styles at all, you know that that has to have a name. So if I scroll down here, I'll see all my different point codes. And so I need to label P5, that point number 5. Unfortunately, point 5 doesn't have a code assigned to it. So there's no way for me to label point 5 using this particular subassembly. So what can we do? Well, we'll go put in a marked point. Your marked points are going to be found underneath your generic palette. So I'll go to my generic, and there's my marked point. So I'll just go ahead and grab my marked point. Now in my properties, I'm going to fill in the point name and the point code. So my point name is going, I don't know, I'll call this one outside curb. That's the name. And the code will be outside curb. And I put an underscore in there just to kind of distinguish the two. So now I'm simply going to come in here and place my marked point where I want it to be. You can see it put that little purple circle there. That's my marked point. All right, I'll go ahead and rebuild my corridor. Because I've modified the assembly, my corridor needs to be rebuilt, so I'll rebuild my corridor. Let's go take a look at the cross-section now. So the cross-section now has those marked points in it. And let me go ahead and make this side a little bit bigger. Oh, did you guys see that? Wasn't that awesome? Yeah, that's a new feature in 2015. Just drag and drop your model views. That's beautiful. Anyways, so I now want to label that. So labels for your corridor cross-sections are going to be done through your code set style. So I'll go to my code set style, which is going to be general multi-purpose code set styles, and I'm using the all codes code set style. So I'm going to go modify this code set style. I'm going to go find that point code, that outside curb, and I scroll down through my points, and as you can see, there is no outside curb. Well, this particular code set style was created long before that code ever existed. I now need to add that code to the code set style. There's a couple different ways I can do that. I can right-click on point and choose add and then type in the values, or I can import the codes from the assembly. So I'm just going to choose import codes. All right, I'll go grab my assembly. I'm going to zoom back in on my corridor here, or my cross-section. And now as I scroll through here, you'll see that outside curb. So that was added because I imported the codes from the assembly. So I'm going to go basically just assign this a label style. So I created this outside curb style. Select OK and OK. And now you can see I have labels there. You can also use marked points to create specific feature lines. If you're using overhang corrections and you've got, if you're trying to create that datum surface, a lot of times those datum surfaces need feature lines to help flesh out the surface, but the problem is we don't have the codes to create those feature lines. Well, go put marked points called datum feature lines anywhere you need those, and then add that feature line to your surface, and it'll help things out tremendously. All right. Last one, the conditional horizontal subassemblies. I'm saving this one for last because I think this one's great. So here's what I've got. I've got an assembly. I'm in the process of creating this assembly here. On the right-hand side, I need driveways. I could repeat the process for the left-hand side, but I'm just going to show you for the right-hand side. So over here on the right-hand side, I need to put driveway in the curb and gutter. So basically, what I want is where I don't have a driveway, well, I want my typical vertical curb and gutter with my sidewalk with the little grassy area prior to the sidewalk. Where I do have the driveway, I want to put in a rollover curb and gutter that ties into the sidewalk. So that's what I want. So what I've done, so what we're going to do is we're going to put in a conditional subassembly. So again, I'll go to my tool palettes. I'll go to my conditional, and I'm going to use this conditional horizontal target. This one's cool. All right, so I'll go ahead and left click on that. All right, I'll come over here to my properties, and as you can see, I've got, which side is it on, the left side or the right side. That'll automatically fill in. The layout width and the layout grade is basically how do you want this to look when it's on the assembly? Where do you want to position it? It really does nothing to the assembly other than it allows you to lay it out nicely so you can figure out what's going on. All right, and then I've got this type, the target found or target not found. So what you're going to do is you're going to give this subassembly a target. Can it hit that thing? If it can, do this. If it can't, well, then don't do anything. Or if I change that to target not found, if it can't hit it, do this. If it can hit it, don't do anything. So I'm going to leave this set to target found. The maximum distance, I'll set this to 25 meters. And I'll attach that to my edge of asphalt. And you can see what it did is it just basically put in this connector. That's all this is. It's just a connector. So if the target is found, do, well, whatever is here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put in another one. And I'm going to change this to target not found. All right, attach it at the same point. So now I have a condition where the target is found, and I have a condition where the target is not found. And now I simply add in my assemblies, or my sub-assemblies, for what I want to do in those two situations. All right, so here's my target found. That's where there is a driveway. So I'm going to go find my driveway sub-assembly. And I'll go ahead and move that to target found. That's what I want to do if the target's found. And then likewise, I'll do the same for the target not found. So those are the options. So now I need to come in here and I need to modify the targets of my sub-assemblies. So I've got, let me go ahead and zoom in on my cross sections here. All right, so I need to edit my target. So again, I'll grab my corridor and I'll edit the targets. I want to do it for this region. So my surfaces, well, I've added in those daylight sub-assemblies, so let me go ahead and assign those correctly here. So existing ground. And now as you can see for my width or offset targets, I have those two conditional horizontal targets. What do I want them to target? Well, I want them to target these polylines. So I'll go ahead and change my target offset from none to something. And what do I want? Well, I want to grab those well, I might have several hundred of these polylines in my drawing. I don't want to have to go through and pick each one individually, so I'm going to select them by layer. Then going to ask me what layer do I want to use? Well, I created one in here called driveway test. I say test to see if there's a driveway. And then I'll repeat the process for the other side. Select by layer, driveway test. All right, I'll just go ahead and hit OK, OK, OK until I'm done. All right. Let me go ahead and force a rebuild on my corridor here just to update my cross sections. There we go. And what we can see is where there's a polyline, it put in a driveway. Where there's not a polyline, there's no driveway. It doesn't do it at the polyline. It simply says, can I hit that thing? If I can, do this. Or if I can't, do that. That's all it does. So the actual driveway, as you can see, is back here. I just have to be able to hit it within that 25 meters or whatever distance I told it.
And Brian, Julie asks, do your target and feature lines have elevation?
No, they do not. So this is a horizontal test. Can I hit that thing within a specific distance? That's all this is. It's just a test. If I can, do this. If I can't, do that. So here I've said, hey, I want to put in this curb and gutter. So here you can see I got this sample line here, and this actually corresponds to this one. So I've got the driveway on the right, curb and gutter on the left. Likewise here, got a driveway on the right, curb and gutter on the left. Here, it's not targeting that polyline. So I got curb and gutter, left and right. If I adjust the polyline, make this a really big driveway, and rebuild my corridor, you can see I now have driveway on the right. All right, so that one quick. All right, but that gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do with corridors. Using these techniques, you can do a lot of different things. So I'm going to go ahead and answer some of the questions that have come in. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask them. I'm going to start off with Jeff. Jeff says, we need a conditional cut fill at 1% minimum, 4% max from the flow line to match 2-foot saw cut in existing pavements. Need some more information, Jeff. I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to accomplish. So you're going from your design and you're going to trying to match to an existing location. One thing you might want to look at, Jeff, I'm not sure if any of these will be of benefit to you for your situation. There are a series of Rehab Sub Assemblies. These Rehab Sub Assemblies are pretty slick. So, for example, I have one called Overlay Widen Match Slope. This one is slick. So let me go ahead and go to the help for this one. Basically what happens here is it tests 2 points, here and here. And says, okay, what's the slope between those two? Well, let me go ahead and put in my overlay, and then I'm going to widen, and I'm going to continue at the same slope at this cross section. And so as I'm moving down my road, my existing road's cross slope changes, so the extension matches that current cross slope for each cross section. So maybe one of those would get you what you want. Not exactly sure. So,
and Jeff, if you have some more specifics, go ahead and type them in. Sheldon, we got your question there. We've got one from Pedro. Where can we obtain a predefined library of sub-assemblies?
Predefined library of sub-assemblies, well, it comes with Civil 3D. If you just go to your tool palettes, so here I'm in my tool palettes. If you're not seeing any of your sub-assemblies in your tool palettes, make sure you've chosen the correct palette group. So if you right-click over here where it gives you the name of your palette, so you can see here it says Tool Palettes, Civil Metric Sub-Assemblies. If I right-click there, I can choose a tool palette group. So maybe you had been doing some work with cameras or something, and you'd gone to the cameras palette group. Well, I no longer see any of my sub-assemblies. So make sure you go back into your sub-assemblies. So there's actually 2 if you're working imperial or if you're working metric.
And Jeff says that he thinks that'll send him in the right direction. So perfect. There's one in the win column, sort of, for us. Okay, Julie's got a question. Could you explain the assembly offset?
The assembly offset. Ooh, that's a good one. So here's what happens a lot of times. Let me open up a drawing. So what happens a lot of times is when you're dealing with these widenings, my sub-assemblies always go perpendicular to the baseline. So what happens is I've got, let me zoom in here. So as you can see, here is my curb and gutter. So here's my edge of asphalt, face a curb, back a curb, or sidewalk or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how this one, maybe this was the flow line, top of curb, back a curb. There we go. And so this is 1.5 feet. This is 2 inches. That's 4 inches. All right? So as I come up to an area where I'm widening, it does exactly the same thing. All right? It goes from here to there, 1.5 feet, 2 inches, 4 inches. I don't want it to be relative to my center line alignment. What I want it to do is I want it to go from here, and I want it now to angle so it's perpendicular to that target, 1.5 feet, 2 inches, 4 inches. So using an assembly offset, you can do that. So if I were to come in here for this one, so let's see, that one's on the left. So I will add in an assembly offset. So assembly, add assembly offset. All right, it's going to ask me for the assembly, so I choose the assembly. And it's going to ask me for an attachment point. It really doesn't matter where I pick this. So I'll just pick there. And then I'm going to move all this to the assembly offset. Now, what you need to have is you need to have an alignment and profile that you then want to attach the assembly offset to. And what's going to happen in this case, and I'm not going to do it here because I don't have this as an alignment and profile, basically what's going to happen is my cross-section is going to come out here, hit that assembly or that alignment, and then continue orthogonal to the alignment rather than orthogonal to the original alignment. It'll do it to the offset alignment. So that's what an assembly offset does for you.
All right, David asks, we have to add safety berms after we build our roads. How would you do it 3 feet high?
We have to add safety berms after we build our roads. So it's part of the road cross-section, so I would just add a berm to the road cross-section. So David, you work in mining a lot, so I would just add that to my road cross-section. So real quick, road cross-section for mine haul road. So I'll go create an assembly. Let me switch to an imperial drawing so I'm actually working in units that I'm used to instead of ones the rest of the world uses. All right, I'll create an assembly here real quick. I'll bring up my tool palettes, switch to my imperial sub-assemblies here, and I'll put in a lane. All right, my lane, so this is a haul road, so it's going to be, I don't know, 60 feet wide, 2% cross slope, whatever materials you want. All right, so there's my big haul road, and I'll add one on the other side too. And now I need a 6-foot high berm here, so what I would use in cases like that is generic links. I just want to put in a berm. I don't have a sub-assembly that matches what I need. I just need something myself. So I'm just going to use link width and slope. I want a 6-foot tall berm. I want 2-to-1 side slopes. I want it to be 6 foot at the top. So I use my link width and slope. Excuse me. So I want this to be 6 feet high, 2-to-1 cross slope, so that's going to be a 12-foot wide berm, wide slope. My slope is going to be, oh gosh, 2-to-1. What percentage is 2-to-1? I don't remember. Okay, I'll just type in 2-to-1. You can always type in different units if Civil 3D shows a unit. Oh yeah, that's 50%. And then I'll attach that in there. There's my 6-foot high berm. Oh, I need to go over 6 feet. So I'm still in the same command, so I'll just change that to as, now I'm not a big fan of using zeros in sub-assemblies. I've seen a lot of issues with zeros in sub-assemblies, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a 0.00001 for the slope, and I'll make that 6 foot wide. In essence, it's level. And then I'll make that 12 foot again, and a minus 50%, because I remember that from the last time I did it. There's my berm, and then I can daylight off the end of that if I need to.
All right, David, hopefully that gets your question answered. And we go on to Sheldon's question that we had earlier on. We'll remind you what the question is. What if you need to target 2 different gutter lines in 2 different profiles?
All right, so Sheldon, I'm assuming you need to do a 3-line profile. I have my center line alignment, I've got my flow line alignments, they each have their own profile, and I need each one of those components to follow along that. So here's the approach I would do. I would create generic links that link to go from the center line to those offset profiles, alignments and profiles. And then to that, I would then attach my curving gutter. And then from that, I would attach lanes that then target back to the center line alignment and profile. So here's the approach I would take for this. And I'm just going to do one side. You repeat the process on the other side, obviously. So I'm going to go create an alignment. alignment creation, not alignment, an assembly, sorry, create assembly. And I'm just going to put in a generic link width and slope. It doesn't matter how wide it is. It doesn't matter what the slope is, because this is going to target the flow line alignment and profile. So I'll bring up my tool palettes. I'll do my generic link width and slope. Again, it doesn't matter because it has to target something. All right, maybe I'll make it a little bit more severe so I can see what's happening. So I don't know, I'll make the slope, I don't know, say 25%. All right, so that's obviously not right, but again, it needs to target that offset alignment and profile. Now to this, I would then attach my curb and gutter. So I'll go to my curbs, curb and gutter, and attach it there. Oh wait, I want this to be my flow line. So again, I'll just go ahead and move that from the endpoint there to the endpoint there. Off to the right, I would even put my sidewalk, my daylight, whatever else you need. Off to the left, I would then put in my lane. Width and slope for the lane doesn't matter because this should be targeting your center line alignment and profile. So 12 width, 12 foot doesn't really matter. I'll make that a 2 and a slope is 50%. Again, you should be overriding these. And then I'll attach that to my lane. Oh no! So your sub-assemblies have sides. When it attaches to something on the right side, it automatically applies that right side to it. So what I'm simply going to do is I'm just going to mirror this around. So I'll choose mirror. I'll basically mirror it back to the same place. It says, wait a minute, are you sure you want to do this? You want a left lane sub-assembly on the right side? Yes, I do. And I'll just get rid of that one there. So now, when I create my corridor, I'm going to tell this link, hey, I want you to target the right side flow line for offset and for elevation. And then I want you to take this lane, so this is then going to target out here. And then I want this lane to target my center line alignment and profile. So it's then going to come back and put in my lane for me. And so I now have control of all three pieces independently. I know it doesn't look good here. I wouldn't use this as a typical cross-section, but hopefully that helps you out, Sheldon. Did that work for you, Sheldon? Do you think that'll work? I think so. All right, excellent.
Okay, good, good. Brian, do you have anything else you want to add? It's you know, that pretty much covers it. But
yeah, I think that covers everything I wanted to discuss today.
One last chance for any questions. Type them in. Otherwise, we'll call it a day. And appreciate you joining us. Hopefully, this was a helpful webinar today. And intersections. There's Julie.
Yeah, intersections. That's going to be a whole webinar in of itself. That's something we'll have to get into a little more detail.
Do you have any specific questions right now about intersections, Julie? Otherwise, we'll get one of those on the boards here in the next month or two.
I think we've done webinars on intersections. You might want to check our webinar archive. Webinar archive, it can be found at CAD-1.com.
And this webinar will be recorded today as well, and will be posted probably in 3 or 4 days.
CAD-1.com. Oops. See if I can type. All right. So here's our home page. We have a webinars link. And under the webinars link, we should have webinar archives. And let's do a quick search for intersections. Intersections in Civil 3D. So there is we do have a webinar up there on intersections already, Julie.
Yeah, out in the YouTube world there. And yay, Sheldon does ask, will this type of corridor match the gutter line alignment at the intersections?
It depends upon how you're going to have to create multiple cross-section or assemblies for your different intersections. How you set up those different assemblies will control whether or not it works. A lot of times in intersections, you're going to create assemblies specifically for your gutter flow line, so it should work.
Well, Brian, thank you as always for preparing this. They're always, I think, helpful. We always get good feedback. So anyway, I appreciate it, and we will talk to you folks soon. Thanks very much. Goodbye now.